I've been playing around with the Ricoh GR4's different image controls, and I realized I haven't really used negative film much. I took a few shots with it and it reminded me a lot of classic consumer negative film like Kodak Gold, particularly the way the bright reds of buses and phone boxes, they faded, they skewed towards orange. So I thought it'd be fun to compare them like for like and do a little showdown. So the camera I'm showing you here is my favorite film camera. It's the Voigtlander Bessa R2A with the 28mm color scope hard f2.8. So it's the same focal length as the GR4, and it's a super sharp lens. It's got a bit of vignette, which obviously gives it a character not dissimilar to the GR. As a side note, the Bessa is just an incredible camera. It has an aperture priority mode and it can shoot 1/2000th of a second, which beats the likes of the Leica M6. It has frame lines for 35mm, 50mm, 75 and 90. But I find you can use the full viewfinder as a rough guide to the 28mm field of view. So on the Ricoh GR4, I thought I'd start off by shooting negative film on its factory settings. So I'll run through those quickly here. We've got saturation 0, hue is 0, high key 1, contrast 1, highlight contrast is 0, shadow contrast is -1, and everything else is set to 0. It's a bit hard to see here, but I'm setting the ISO to 400, and that will match how I'm shooting my film. I'm also going to manually set the white balance to a color temperature. It'll be a Kelvin value of 5550K. I wanted to match the kind of daylight balance you get on Kodak Gold, so it's consistent across different scenes. Ricoh shows it as being somewhere between full sun and shade. As we'll see later, it's probably a touch too warm, so I'll probably set to 5300 to get similar results to Gold. D-range correction, I'm just setting highlight correction to on and shadow correction to medium. So all that remained was to go and pick up some film and take a few shots in different light around Covent Garden. I thought I'd put a roll of Kodak Gold through the Bessa, push one stop to bring out more contrast and saturation. It actually responds pretty well to being pushed, and the grain remains quite fine considering it isn't a professional film stock. I was matching the aperture for all the shots in this test, but it's worth noting that the GR has an APS-C sensor, so depth of field isn't identical. But the first surprise when I got the scans back was that with no tweaking, the shots were already really close in a lot of scenarios. It felt to me like the team at Ricoh potentially even used Gold as a reference or one of their references when they were creating the color mix for this image control. And I wasn't even shooting this film at box speed, so if I had, the results might have even been closer with less saturation, less visible grain. I think subtle differences did emerge. I prefer the way that Kodak deals with foliage, green foliage. It's a bit less saturated and less blue. The yellows, as you can see there, are a bit more true to color, where the film sim's a bit kind of yolky. I also thought one of the other key differences was in the way that skies came out. You can see the blues of skies are much less saturated on the GR. They tend towards teal, which is a popular shift to make in the Lightroom color mixer, so that's kind of fine by me. One thing that's just unquestionably better on a digital sensor is the handling of shadows and underexposed areas of the frame. So on this film you aren't really getting true black. It's more that kind of muddy yellow-green tint that you tend to associate with cheaper film stocks, particularly if you underexpose and try and pull it back later. Worth remembering that digital sensors deal really well with underexposure, and they can bring back shadow detail. with negative film emulsion, it tends to deal better with overexposure, so you can always darken down shadows later. And with that in mind, I often intentionally shoot 2/3 of a stop overexposed. But yeah, overall really pleasantly surprised by the results. So I thought I'd come into Lightroom now and just look at the RAW version. So this is using the camera negative film profile in RAW. I've tagged all the RAW files as red and the JPEGs from the Noritsu scanner for the film as green. So you can easily tell the difference, but the one on the left here is from Ricoh GR IV. The one on the right was from Kodak Gold. I wanted to lift the exposure a little bit. I'm not sure whether it got the tint quite right. This feels really warm to me, so I've pushed it to 5,900 Kelvin. I'm adding contrast here because if you look in the shadow of the tree, you can see it's pretty contrasty in the film on the right. So I think +1 contrast makes sense if you're making your recipe. There is some good shadow detail, so I'm lifting that to about 29. So -1 or maybe -2 shadow correction for the recipe. The highlights are a little blown out, so I might go +1 contrast on the highlights, which differs from the defaults. And just lifting the blacks because you don't really get true black with pretty much any negative film. Because I pushed it, it was pretty saturated. I like how these have come out, but I'm adding vibrance here. To try to match them, I mean, you're going to have to add quite a bit of saturation to the blues and probably push it quite far towards the purple hue. Just interested in what the film stock's doing, even if this isn't something that we're going to necessarily build into our recipe. I think oranges seem to come out really saturated. It feels like there's a bit more yellow. So maybe I can bring the color balance down. Just trying to match the wall a bit. It's pretty green actually. It's kind of yellowy green. And that's looking pretty similar. When it comes to grain, you may or may not want this. I probably would do sort of 25 grain with a size of 35 and leave roughness on its own. I thought these shots of the dog, not by any means a great photo, but a really good example of, you know, how close we're getting with the default film simulation. Probably want a bit more magenta in the stonework. I've copied over all the other settings. The greens aren't quite the same, are they? They kind of, maybe they're a tiny bit shifted blue. I don't know. Comparing these two Phoenix shots, I definitely prefer the raw file on the left, the red spot. So the digital file, as you can see, this sort of underexposure is very neutral. I mean, if you're matching it, it's a kind of greeny tint in the shadows. I don't really like how that represents the scene, so I'm not fussed about building that into any profile or recipe that I make. You can see the outline on the film is actually really yellow, really orange, so may even want to add more. And then the skies here, really quite different. Once we pasted our editing settings, we're much closer to the same white balance, which I think makes a big difference to color. So we've got more magenta in the white balance, and that's affecting the hue of the sky. So if you wanted it closer to gold, you might think about pushing hue to +1 so that you're getting more of those magentas there. But I don't think it'll ever be completely like for like, but you do find yourself playing spot the difference a little bit. Just like with gold, I found having the white balance set to manual, so it's not really judging the scene in any way. You do find that you get these really warm artificial lights. I don't mind it too much. I think I would probably, if I was shooting in lower light and we're just taking inspiration, a starting point, then I might set an auto white balance, maybe with a preference for warm. I love that you can do that on the GR. As you can see at 3800 Kelvin, or what have we got there? Use the picker, I've got 4.5 thousand. So that's way more blue than a manual white balance would be, but it's much more appropriate to the scene. Don't feel like you have to stick rigidly to the parameters that I originally set. It's more just seeing how you can get close and then see what you want to keep and see what you want to discard. I like this image. I think there's probably not enough color in it. For me, it's about lines and textures, so I probably would shift to hard monotone. This guy in the park was just great. I really enjoyed. I think you almost want to add more vignette here and just really draw attention to that face, kind of drawing you in. But it's been a really fun profile to shoot with. I think if we add a bit more contrast, raise the blacks just so that we're not getting any true black. You know, you really don't need to mess around with it that much. I'll shift the greens to yellow, a little bit more yellow. I think it just makes them a little less harsh, and trying to make sure the colors are kind of complementary, so I'll take away the pinks. There's that little red flower in the background. I'm going to shift more towards orange. But yeah, this is, you know, the negative film profile. I've done nothing to this. It's just set 5000 temperature. It looks great. So I hope this was helpful, and as always, if you want to see more, hit like button, subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks guys.